Hey guys, it's Francina Simone, and today I'm here to talk about how important doesn't always mean good. So I want to hit on a very specific topic involving books that discuss important issues and quality, and whether people should have critical opinions of a book that discusses important topics. So one of my first biggest issues on this is I am a believer that all books should ride or die on their own merit. I'm not huge on the idea that it being an important topic means that it gets to be a trash book. Now, I do understand that we're talking about books that deal with marginalized issues, things that often aren't talked about, things that are often not acknowledged, or things that have had a very hard time in general getting into this industry. So I'm very sensitive to that topic, and it hits very close to home, but yet still I feel like all books should live or die on their own merit. If you got a trash book that talks about important topics, it's still a trash book, and it still has important topics. Now, that being said, I have no problem with someone giving a review of the book saying that I thought the writing was horrible, but it touches on a very important topic that I'd like to discuss further in this review. That's perfectly fine. Use that time as a soapbox. Use that time to recommend books that do it better. Use that time to talk about what you wish that you could have seen. And if you're a creator, hell, clap back. Write a book that you think discusses and goes into that topic much better. And another thing that I want to address is that important means different things to different people, and I mean that within marginalized groups as well. Like, think about an intersectional Black character who also happens to identify as queer. What if the representation of the Black character is excellent and talks about what it means to be a Black person in the world, but the queer representation is fucking horrendous? I mean, like, it could be like so bad that we're just like, fam, no, cancel that, fam, please stop, who let this through the gates? You know what I'm saying? So like, where does that book lie? Do we just let it crash and burn on its own merits and talk about it because it's a multifaceted topic? Or do we play the Oppression Olympics and give it ratings like, well, and since it's about a Black character, I'm going to put it up a little bit higher. Even though it's trash queer like representation, I'm going to bump it up because it's a Black person. And I think Black people suffer more than, people who identify as in the LGBTQA community. Like, first of all, how do you even measure that? Who suffers worse, and which one is more important? Are we allowed to criticize? Are people who identify as queer allowed to criticize even if they're not Black? Or are Black people allowed to criticize who don't identify as queer? Like, are they allowed to bump it up? Like, you get what I'm saying here? I think if we just allow people to criticize things in general, regardless of whether it's important or not, we get to have these discussions. But if we try to stifle it just so that books that have important topics do well, are they? I mean, if it's a trash book, is it really going to sell all that well? You can only fool people so many times. And if you keep telling people that trash books are great, they're going to stop believing you, and they're going to stop buying books that have important issues and topics. But if we let every book stand on its own merit and treat every book as it should on its own merit, then people will stop grouping them together as these important books don't do well because they're all trash. Which leads me to another thing, is this is not a fair thing to do for marginalized people in general. Marginalized groups really do deserve to have a plethora of topics that represent them, and they also deserve to have quality ones. Quality doesn't matter. Just here. Take it. Take it and be happy. Look at what I did for you. Like, nah, bitch, I want quality work. Like, I want to be entertained. I want it to be good. And I want to feel like I've been there and back again. Like, I want all of the feels with a book. Now, I understand that subjectively I want to be entertained with my fiction, especially, again, I want to say with a caveat, I'm talking about young adult fiction. I'm not talking about other fictions because this is generally a young adult channel. But I expect to be entertained when I read. And if it's a poor quality book or it's derivative of everything else, it's setting the bar so low and saying that I don't deserve quality stories as well. Now, before I get steamrolled in the comments, I do 100% completely understand the idea of propping up books so that more books get published that are like that. However, I do want to say, being on the other side of it, that's not exactly how it works. Yes, when you say you want more things, that doesn't necessarily mean that it becomes a thing. Publishing and investors follow money trail. It's a business. If the money's not talking, neither is the printing press. So it's not necessarily an act of saying, oh, this is great. Like, you got to put your money where your mouth is. And if people stop believing you because you keep telling them that trash books are amazing and important books are amazing, no matter whether they're trash or not, people are going to stop buying those, and they're going to start going back to just the things that they generally enjoy. I think instead what we should focus on is being critical. And when we're critical, we allow room for people to have discussions about these things. And then there's the question of who is allowed to be critical. And honestly, I'm not the type of person to put a gatekeeper on that. I think white people can criticize books about Black people whether they relate or not. In fact, I was reading a book of American Street by Evie Zavoy, and I think it is an amazing book, and it has a lot of crazy different family dynamics that white people probably aren't used to. And in fact, Fabiola, the Haitian immigrant, wasn't used to these family dynamics that her Haitian diaspora cousins had living in Detroit, Michigan. I think it was Detroit, Michigan. And it was very strange for her, and for this white girl who was reviewing the book, it was just as strange for her too. She found it not believable because, well, my family isn't like that, and all I kept thinking was, girl, you so white you don't even know it. But I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think it just shows that we're different, and that's just telling the truth. We're fucking different. Everybody's different. It doesn't matter whether you're marginalized or not. You're fucking different. I think for marginalized people, it's just more tiring to constantly be reminded of your difference. And whereas with white people in the West, you aren't. And small story, when I lived in Japan, a lot of white people there had a hard time consistently being different. It was the first time they had understood that, yes, the world doesn't look like you. And it was a wake-up call to a lot of them there. All they did was complain about the, prejudice that they had to suffer through. And I went through all of the same stuff, and I was like, it's not prejudice, we're just different. And they were just like, oh, well, I speak impeccable Japanese. And I was like, probably not. That's why they don't understand you. And they're like, they're always staring. And I'm like, well, because you're white and you look different, and because you dress weird, and because you stand weird, and because you're big and ginormous. Why are you confused? And I guess for them, it was odd because they were used to not being singled out as different. They were used to parading around their difference. Oh, I like comic books. I'm different. And this was one that made them uncomfortable. And for marginalized people, we're used to that shit. I'm used to walking around and people be like, oh my God, your hair. And I'm just like, yeah, bitch, look, it's cute. I'm cute. Thank you. But at the same time, I'm turning 30 this year. I'm very comfortable in my own skin. I don't need people to validate me as being like them or different than them. And if there's one piece of advice that I could give, especially to you teens out there, it is to learn how to be comfortable in your own skin. Don't look for validation outside. You don't need people to accept you. You have to accept you. And once you do, you don't give a fuck about what anybody else has to say. People point out that you're different, you be like, yes, bitch, and I'm working at. You noticed? And it's the most liberating thing. And I mean, if you're going to be different, you might as well embrace it and enjoy it. And surround yourself by communities that celebrate your difference, not people that constantly bring up how horrible it is to be different. Because when you're constantly thinking about how horrible it is to be different, you end up like all the white people that I was with in Japan, where it was miserable for them. They were miserable. So being different is okay. And having people who are different criticize books about how they're different for them, that's okay. Maybe that person needed it. Maybe that white girl who was talking all crazy shit about American Street because clearly she didn't know how to step outside of her own perspective, maybe that was the first step for her. Maybe an engaging conversation and dialogue with other people in the comments being like, yo girl, chill. This is normal in Black communities. Maybe that's her first step of realizing that, geez, the world isn't all white and the same, and these things aren't not real because it doesn't look like me. Maybe she was 13. Hell, I have no idea. But I think it's important to allow people the space to do that. And that's with the caveat of, that doesn't mean I have to give space for people to do that with me. It means I don't have to read those reviews. I don't have to discuss those things with people who I don't think I should discuss those things with. I can just discuss things with people who I think will have like-minded or like opinions, or people who I respect. That's all personal preference too. I just think that, do you, and let other people do them, even if it's shit that you think is weird. As long as they're not killing anybody or hurting anybody, if they just make themselves look like fucking idiots, just let them make themselves look like fucking idiots. The whole point is not to make yourself look like one. And I think the only way is by doing better. So I think allowing other people to criticize important books and to talk about what they think are problems also creates a space for creators and other marginalized voices to create clapbacks, to create responses to works that they think just don't do their topic justice. And let's be real, artists thrive in controversial spaces because they have a voice and something to say. Like, if you're always fucking happy, what the fuck are you gonna do? Paint clouds? I mean, you could be like Bob Ross. Bob Ross did it, but he was also a Vietnam vet, so there's a lot to say on that too. So I think that it's important for us to have this space to discuss and talk about things without feeling like we can't because, if we do, it's only limited supply. You can't act from a place of scarcity. And that's where I think we're kind of going with this whole important books thing, is that there's scarcity, that they have to be the special ones and they have to do good, which imagine what that does to the creator, especially non-seasoned debut authors. Give them the chance to grow and to be something more. If you hold their books up like the epitome of everything, while other people are just not buying it because something's wrong, that creates a weird space in which they probably can't create, or at least they don't really understand what space they're creating in, if they really did do the topic justice. And I think all of those are important things. Let everything fly or sink on its own merit. That's my opinion. But what does it matter? It's just one opinion. What's yours? Make sure to leave it down below. What do you think? Are important books something that should be criticized, or are they something that we should just kind of put on a pedestal and see what it is and see how it does? I'm very interested to know your opinion on such topics. I mean, like, if you guys think I'm full of shit and I'm kind of crazy, just let me know. It's all right. We're all a little crazy. But guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I upload Tuesdays at 2 and Saturdays at 10. And I will see you then. T2IL, ta for now. Bye.